What is up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Guarani Vision, the first ever podcast dedicated to Paraguayan football in English. As always, I am Roberto Rojas, and joining me my two great co-hosts, Fede Perez and Ralph Hannah. And guys, it is 2026, and it's our first episode of 2026. It is officially a World Cup year here on Guarani Vision. Obviously, we are very excited to see Paraguay participate in the World Cup here in North America in about 5 months' time. Obviously, it's an exciting year for a lot of Paraguayans, as it's obviously going to be their first World Cup that they'll see in 16 years, or for some generations for the first time ever. So obviously, it's a huge, exciting moment for all of us. And of course, we have a lot to dissect, I guess, before all that. We don't want to go into just talking about the World Cup for the next 6 months as much as I want to. But no, we have other stuff going on in the country. Obviously, it's a big year for a lot of the clubs as well in Paraguay. The Apertura beginning exactly next week on the 23rd. We got obviously our 12 teams ready to begin a new dream, as they say, in the Copa de Primera over there to see who could win the Apertura title. Obviously, we'll talk about some of the players that we'll keep an eye out, some teams, obviously some storylines to really go into it. And of course, yeah, it's always a fun time when we do preview a lot of these episodes and we go into a new season because it really starts afresh. And I'll go to Fede on this one to start off. It really is always an exciting year, but more so now with it being a World Cup year. I feel like more special attention is going to be given to the Paraguayan League as a whole because of, who could come up, who could be the next stars as well. Because, as much as the World Cup is also the culmination of, a long sort of campaign of qualifying and whatnot. We have to remember where all these guys started. And a lot of these guys started on these teams. So in a way, we are also opening a new book for after that, for 2030. And, a lot of these players that we've seen, be it those who are under the radar, who are in the academies or whatever, those guys could be the future stars. And it all starts really here in the Copa de Primera. So, Fede, I guess I'll go to you first. It was good to also see you in Paraguay last month in the country. We were able to spend some time there to chat it up a bit. Obviously, enjoy that hot weather that was there because here I'm complaining about the heat, the cold over here at the minute, and I wish I was back just so I could one enjoy the heat, but two to be able to see some soccer that I haven't been able to see live in quite some time. But it'll be an exciting Apertura this time around, especially in a World Cup year.
Hi, Roberto. Hi, Rob. Hi to everyone listening to Guarani Vision. Great to be back for another year. Here we go, guys. Just one more time. What is it? Year number 6 for us? I think we're heading that way. I was
Yes.
just looking at our episodes. This is episode number 189. Yeah, that's how long we've been doing this. Lovely to be back. And I'm missing our football, guys. I'm missing our soccer also. It's been a while. Everyone's been on vacations. Teams have been already been starting up, obviously, with their preseason. They've already been playing a couple of friendlies. We've been getting a sneak peek at some of these new teams because it is kind of a trend here also, right? Some keep their base of players, but most teams in the Paraguayan League, they just erase everybody and start off from scratch, especially most of the new teams, the ones that come from the second division. I was just looking at a couple of those. They're hiring like about 15, 16 new players. It's like a whole new squad. It's a whole different game for them. So I'm really excited about what could happen going forward in this 2026 season as we kick it off with the Apertura. The last champion was Libertad. This is one of the teams that hasn't hired that many, as I'm talking about some of these weird trends in the Paraguayan football. Definitely got to talk about the national team. Roberto, is going to be a very special year. We're going to be all over the Albirroja waiting for the confirmation, right, on these friendlies that we're supposed to play also in March. Apparently, there's going to be a European and African team for us as the calendar tightens up as we're heading into the World Cup in US. Our first game will be against the USA, so everybody is really making plans for June and July to see what they can do about it. And it was a nice holidays. It was beautiful to see you, man. Have a little off time off the air, talk a little bit about other things. It was good to see Ralph also celebrating his birthday. Happy late birthday to Ralph, who we never get a chance to celebrate it on the air because we're usually on vacation. So it's a good opportunity also to give a shout out to everybody. Hopefully everyone had a really good time during the holidays. It's back to work for us.
It is back to work for us. It is back to work for a lot of these teams and a lot of these players, Ralph, because really, I think that is sort of the talking point that we'll get to in a bit. But really, it is a lot of work for a lot of these players, more extra work, I would say, just because it is a World Cup year, and a lot of these players, be it those that are in Paraguay or those that are abroad, they are really trying to put in that work to sort of get on Gustavo Alfaro's team because that really is a talking point. That is probably the main talking point for the next 5 months is who is going to make that squad, what is the starting lineup going to be, and I think it really does start from what we're seeing in transfers. We can even talk about some transfers that we saw from those players abroad. Firstly we got Carlos Coronel leaving Orlando City going to San Pablo, to even one of Brian Ojeda going from Real Salt Lake to Orlando City, and those are just two examples out of many that we've seen that are trying to make these moves to sort of get them into consideration or to really get themselves playing. I mean, the big one, of course, is Gatito Fernandez, so we don't know where he's going there. But yeah, this really is a big year for a lot of these players to not only step it up in where they go, but also to, understand that, this decision really is going to be the culmination of them either not making that World Cup squad or making that World Cup squad, because there are only 26 names, or at least that's what people assume it's going to be. It's going to be 26. It's not official as of the number, but if you are one of those lucky 26, you get the golden ticket of a lifetime of going to a World Cup.
Yeah, 26 in 2026 is the year of kind of hopes and dreams and lots of aspirations. Like you were saying, Roberto, I mean, good to be back, first of all. I'm one of Fede mentioned my birthday, so I'm one of those people in their 40s that is still going in Paraguayan football because a lot of my guys dropped out. I had Tacuara has now looks like he's retiring. Maybe he'll play a bit more. Martin Silva was out of there. I think Martin Cáceres was out, but Roque Santa Cruz still going strong at 44 now, 43, 44 at Nacional. So there you go. I still got somebody in that in that age range playing. Um, Talking about the World Cup and everything coming up and the transfers, yeah, I mean we see like Fede said, lots of teams make huge moves at this time of year. Traditionally, maybe like Libertad is the one team that doesn't make a huge change because they have the base of young players that they can bring out. But I was just reading, for example, San Lorenzo, who got promoted. Ortaman's already made 15 signings, so it's basically a new squad that's going to take this on. And then you're looking at some of these players, even in the Paraguayan local league, who are having that dreams of they could be playing. And then you've even got people in Argentina that might be getting Paraguayan nationality and are hoping that they might be late to the party and join up. So there's a lot to happen, I think, with the possibilities and the squads and everything going on. But first, we got to get through the Apertura and the Copa Libertadores, which obviously will be taking place and has to take a break for the World Cup. But that's going to be heating up pretty much what the end of the end of January, early February. You start those qualifiers, and then so that's a lot of money on the table, especially for the Paraguayan teams.
Yeah, absolutely. Starting off here with the Copa Libertadores, it actually begins in February, first like February 4th, 5th, and 6th, and then the Sudamericana begins in March. So yeah, sorry, I'm looking at it from 2026. My bad. But yeah, going in, yeah, March 3rd and 5th is the first stage of the Copa Sudamericana, and then with the Copa Libertadores beginning February 3rd and 5th. So yeah, same time, just different year. But still, yeah, it is interesting, that you mentioned that whole Argentine nationality. I'll go to Fede firstly on this one. It really, yeah, the one of Milton Jimenez trying to pull a Lucas Barrios in 2010 when he came through the door, that he, didn't play in that sort of qualifying process for South Africa. Obviously, was overshadowed by the Cavanias shooting that obviously, unfortunately, took him out of the World Cup, and then came Lucas Barrios. I hope to God that we don't have a similar situation like this, that, if players do miss out, this is due to injury or just something going on and not an incident like what happened to Cavanias 16 years ago. But yeah, it does feel like everyone is trying to check their Paraguayan, family and be like, oh, wait, can I qualify because of my grandmother or my grandfather or something? Uh, because I think everyone wants to join the World Cup, and they understand that they don't, that probably can't do it if they're Argentine or if they're Brazilian or whatever, and so they're looking at other options. Fede. I mean, I don't know. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about those guys that maybe aren't? part of that whole process or wasn't part of the Alfaro process, and they're trying to sneak their way in just because of their Paraguayan heritage.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the reason behind it, but if there is an opportunity, right? I mean, why not take it? You don't get many opportunities to play along your life in a World Cup. So when the opportunity comes and where somebody tells you, "Hey, you might play for Paraguay," you might try to do something about it, right? Like most guys have done. We've seen it before. You mentioned a couple of names there. I don't like it that you compared Milton Jimenez to Lucas Barrios. Lucas Barrios scored many, many goals to earn his spot in the Roja, especially in a better position or playing in a much better level, I would say, than Milton Jimenez. Even physically, I would even say he's much in a better position also. And I did not like Milton Jimenez lately. I started watching him a little bit more ever since they mentioned that he could come into the national team. But this is not the only name that has been thrown around, right? Ever since Gustavo Alfaro took over, he kind of opened the door ever since he said, if they want to come and they want to be here, they might get an opportunity. But he didn't open that door for many players outside of Paraguay. He actually gave the opportunity to most Paraguayans, and especially in that position that we're talking about, right, in the center forward, where we're still kind of looking for the right pieces. We have Tony Sanabria, but we're still looking for that plan B, that plan C, that second, third option, right? And some of the guys have gone cold in that sense. Alex Arce, Gabriel Avalos last year. So obviously you open the radar, you look at other players, you look at other options, and Milton is one of them because he plays in a really big team like Boca Juniors. But from what I've seen, I don't think he's earned that spot yet. I don't think he has that opportunity, especially with a team that they know each other. They played already a lot of games with each other. I think Gabriel Avalos deserves that spot over him. I think maybe Carlos Gonzalez might sneak in this team before Milton Jimenez might earn a spot. This is the way I see it. But it doesn't have to do anything with them being Paraguayan or they speak more with an Argentinian accent. It has to do with the fact that they were already in that locker room. They were already part of that process that you were talking about, Roberto. I think that gives them some sort of advantage heading into March because we only have a couple of games and then we're already headed to the World Cup.
Yeah, there's very, very, very little time to kind of get yourself a part of this group that has been one of the strong points of Alfaro has been bringing this team together, getting that mentality to work where previous coaches hadn't been able to with the same group of players. I mean, firstly, to touch on the point about, double nationality or dual nationalities, specifically Argentinians, because obviously it's a neighboring country. There's a lot of Paraguayans that emigrated there, so that's why it's the most likely country you would find a Paraguayan dual national from. I mean, it really depends on the individual because we see it. I mean, Roberto, you see it because you were born in the US to Paraguayan parents. My kids were born in Paraguay but have grown up in the US, and the bond you have with that country, whether it's your mother country or your father's country, it really depends on your upbringing. So for someone like Gustavo Alfaro to see if are they motivated to play, it's going to be a very individual decision and personal. But then going back to actually the style of Milton Jimenez and his where he fits, I can exactly see why Alfaro would want him. But to Fede's point, you've got Avalos who does pretty much the same thing. I mean, he's not going to come in and be a starter, right? He's just there as hopefully a backup that Sanabria will be fine, wouldn't be injured, and so we're looking at a backup. So he's going to come in, do that kind of role. I saw Isidro Pita is injured again. He didn't play yesterday for Bragantino. So maybe he is thinking, okay, I've got a lot of injury prone center forwards that aren't scoring goals. Maybe I need that backup. And so it might be through there. But honestly, I couldn't see much more than a backup, and really only in case of quite a few injuries happen just at the wrong time that we feel we need to bring in someone from that hasn't been part of this group and tried and tested already.
Let me ask you, Roberto, has Milton Jimenez shown you enough to take somebody out of this squad and make him a spy?
No, I don't think so. And that's also maybe down to bias in the sense of I've seen more of the players that have kind of proved that they can do it in this squad as opposed to yeah, and I only use the Vargas example because it was a player that went through under the radar in the last few months, or sorry, through the window in the last few months. But different comparison. He was playing in Europe. He was much younger, and they needed someone to score. This one, as much as Miguel Jimenez is, I would assume is doing well at Boca Juniors. I don't know if that will be enough to say, hey, I'm good enough to play for the Paraguay national team just because other players can't. But yeah, no, I think ultimately you're right, Ralph. I think this is, if it were to come to a case of him going, it would be as a backup, or if some by sure bad luck, an injury were to happen, then that would open the door to someone like him. But yeah, I think ultimately, in my opinion, I think the squad is already there. Like we know, and we've seen that even in the friendlies after the World Cup qualifiers, and I'm sure we're going to see it again in March, that you kind of have your base of players and that you're going to stick with it. And that unless something bad happens where there's injuries or really bad run of form, or someone just happens to pop off and do so well in like the local domestic league or somewhere, then that would mean that person would go in. But other than that, I don't see if Milton Jimenez, as much as he is going to try to do as best as he can at Boca Juniors this season, I don't know if it will be enough for him to be on that final squad, at least right now. But, we'll see. Times there's still time left. There's still 5 months. A lot can happen in 5 months. And so we just have to wait and see what happens there. And, one player that is also up in terms of their future is Claudia Martinez. Claudia Martinez is obviously the name that we've been talking about for quite some time because of how good she's been for Paraguay. She had a wonderful 2025, being top goal scorer in the Copa America Femenina, in the U17. Sudamericana, obviously playing for her national team and scoring goals there. She's really gotten the attention from a lot of these teams around the world, in Europe, in North America, even countries close. And we've seen Olimpia keeping her to a contract that ultimately means that if any club were going to go and sign her, it would mean it would go into a really expensive fee. So, Ralph, I'll go to you on this one. What do you think is going to happen? What is the latest with Claudia Martinez, who
Well,
just
well,
turned 18?
the latest is she turned 18 yesterday at the time of recording, which I think a lot of people had assumed that would be the day she gets announced at a new club, especially because Olympia, quite surprisingly, Olympia announced publicly that they'd renovated her contract, just before the 18th birthday. She'd already signed a long-term contract with them, and then they sort of added in this $2 million release clause, which for me is still an unrealistic fee. But I think it was just a point of saying that, she's not gonna, there's no way she can turn 18 and get out of this contract for free. Olympia needs to be paid some money, which can happen. It would have been quite strange, but I suppose maybe they were concerned about that. With the money at play, from what I understand, the only teams that would possibly be able to pay are in the NWSL or possibly in England, but she can't go to England because of the whole visa situation. I don't think she has the right points. So it's basically the US, and it only has been the US for a long time. I know there were some reports about Spain, possibly Brazil, Argentina, but that was never on the table. South America was never on the table for her personally. I think Spain was. But those clubs just don't have the money that's being asked for from Olympia. So it's really come down to the US, and I think they would have hoped that they were announcing her move today on her or yesterday on her birthday. It hasn't happened, so it looks like there's maybe more than one club involved looking to try and get that signature, but Paraguay, Claudia is currently with the U20s, and then she's just staying there to be with the senior team because she's been called up, and they of course are playing in the US in about 12 days. I think it's the 28th of January. They're playing against US in Carson in California. And I think by that time she will be in the US. She will also be an NWSL player. Just don't know where, but we will find out very soon. I mean, the big thing is that I would say is for Paraguayan women's football, for Olympia especially, this is going to be kind of a game changer, this transfer, because they've never transferred anybody for any kind of money before. So this gives Olympia a chance to really, if all this money can be dedicated to the women's team, obviously they will dominate Paraguay, which they've started to do, but they can really make an impact in Copa Libertadores, which they haven't been able to do yet, despite having a good team together. And they could loan in with fees big players from Brazil to come in for Libertadores because it's a short tournament and really give it a go. So I think for Olympia particularly, this can really change the game, and hopefully for women's football in Paraguay, this will help with the professionalization, which they've been on the road to the full professionalization. Because now I think investors and other companies and brands are going to say, hold on a minute, if you can sell players for $1 million, that's we can't even do that in the men's game very often, right? It's only the occasional player that will go for over $1 million in Paraguayan football. I mean, a lot will go for less going to Brazil or Argentina. So I think it could be a real game changer. And hey, by this time next week, by the show next week, we might know. We might have found out what happens.
We might know, Fede, but yeah, that's a good point. That does really change everything, not just for her, but just for Paraguayan football in the women's game as well. I mean, $1 million, if that is what is to be reported and what is to be believed from those reports, that's a huge deal. Would be one of the most expensive players of all time, and they come from Paraguay.
It's amazing. It's incredible what we've seen from her ever since she appeared in Paraguay playing for Olimpia. Ever since she took over in first division, but we've seen this player develop in these last 2 years into a tremendous star, guys. And now she's about to take it to the next level, turning 18, waiting for that leap, waiting for that club that's gonna welcome her probably the best way. Hopefully she starts playing right away. Hopefully she fits in, and with the whole language barrier, with the whole with the whole uh, with the whole change that's gonna go along with this tremendous transfer that's about to happen. And it opens up the doors for other players. Also, I think, just going to motivate other players, other women that are playing football here in Paraguay, especially girls from the countryside. We really need that. Also coming along with players that are developing here in Asunción. But I mean, particularly for me, the way that I see it is, I've seen a lot of girls that have been able to go to the US because they've been trying to do the two careers, just study and play football at the college level. We've seen it in high school also, but we haven't seen it in the pros yet. And Claudia's about to do it. Claudia is about to open a new door for them. And that could be really special because we've been yet to take that next step, just take those players that have played in college and into the pros. That's probably the hardest thing right now, right? We have a couple even that have been born there. We talked to Florencia Cáceres. We always put her out there as an example. She was born over there, but she loves to play for Paraguay. She's always very proud of that, and she's trying to make her way to the pros. It is the probably the longest journey, unless you're a crack, unless you're a different kind of player like Claudia Martinez is. And I'm still dreaming with her. I'm dreaming about the World Cup. I'm dreaming about all the possibilities that she has. I mean, Brazil needed a Pelé. Argentina needed a Maradona in a certain point to be world champions. We need maybe a Claudia Martinez to make it to a World Cup and to start winning things, right, in the women's game also. And she might be that player. I don't know. The way that I see her, she's that different. She could be that difference maker, I believe, also in the game, not just opening up doors and from the budget and everything she's going to leave for Olympia, but she's such a good player, guys. And she has so much to give to the country still. So it's going to be great to keep following her journey as she just probably has the best year 2026 ahead of her.
So what you're saying is she's basically our Martha. That's basically what you're saying here.
That's the best comparison, right? Because Marta really was the flag for Brazilian football, but she had really good players along her side also. I and I believe this national team also has really good players. So I think Claudia is not just going to be somebody that's going to stand out above the whole team. She's going to be a really good player alongside other good players. And I see really good talent also from the youth league that's developing. So I'm really looking forward to what these girls could look like in 2 3 years. But Claudia, she's already doing it. She's playing in the under 20. She's playing in the senior national team. She's already in there. So that's why she's the one that's got me more excited than everybody.
It's going to be really fun to see what happens to her. And of course, the next team that she goes to, as well as teams that will be looking at Aya for, it is obviously the beginning of the Apertura. next week, obviously starting a new season, and obviously just some of the teams that will be participating will be obviously Cerro Porteño, Olimpia, Guarani, Nacional. We obviously do not have the two teams from last season in General Caballero of Juan Leo Mallorquín and Atlético Tembetaru, and we got two new names with Rubio Nu of Barrio Santísima Trinidad, and of course San Lorenzo, the team that actually where I live is technically my local over there based in Paraguay. And, we got things really going with a lot of the transfers. The big one, of course, we mentioned Roque Santa Cruz. He was the first big one of January 1st. He was actually the first transfer announced, Ralph, uh, from these teams in Paraguay going to Nacional at 44, turns 45 this year. But we've seen a lot of teams also do a lot of business. Obviously, we got to talk about Cerro Porteño. I think they're the ones that are really doing as much business as they can. They are the defending champions. They are getting some players that maybe will be even expanded. I mean, some of the big names that we mentioned, obviously, was Christian Paredes going from Portland Timbers, Santiago Mosquera, the Colombian, leaving Independiente Santa Fe, Mateo Kilmo Switch from San Luis, and an Argentine born, but he was playing for the German youth teams. And I think the big one everyone's talking about is Vegetti. Vegetti is the one that everyone, Pablo Vegetti, who's been doing so well at Vasco da Gama. He's one of the top goal scorers in all of the Brazilian league. It seems like he is going there. And I mean, aside from all those sort of names that I just mentioned, Ralph, and we'll start with Cerro first, to get the Brazilian football, the top goal scorer from Brazilian football last season, he scored what 27 goals, something like that. That's a huge coup for a team like Cerro Porteño.
Yeah, it's I mean, in terms of the volume of transfers, Cerro hasn't done very much, but as you just mentioned the names, it's been very key positions and strong talent. I mean, Klimovic is hasn't he's kind of dropped off, but he does have like 50 Bundesliga appearances, which is not bad to then come and join the Paraguayan league at what 25, 26. He's not that old. And then Mosquera, you've got with all his experience in Colombia, and Paredes, of course. Christian Paredes for me was one of the most kind of solid Paraguayans in the MLS because he racked up so many minutes playing for Portland Timbers. He was not sometimes not very spectacular, but he was always kind of relied upon. And so you feel he'd be able to come into that midfield and make an impact. And then with Vejete, it's a really strange situation, right? Because he's 37 years old. So you think, wow, this guy is, he's now very old. But like you say, he's coming off this amazing season in Brazil. You feel like if he can, as long as he can keep up the motivation, because the motivation might be slightly different, right? Coming to Paraguay from Brazil. But if he can keep that up, then you would say he's definitely got the quality. One thing I'm not sure about, I don't have the answer to, I don't know if you guys do, is that with Paraguay signing three more foreigners, and the only one they've let go is Pachi Carrizo, who actually I think qualified as Paraguayan. I don't know if they're going to have some issues in terms of how they play everybody in games, or if they're going to have to try and offload some of the foreign players, because obviously there's a limit to how many you can have on the pitch at any one time. And so by signing three and not letting any go, you're really kind of pushing that limit in terms of who you can play in any given game. But hey, Cerro, the champions, have I think done some good business, and they're also looking towards, of course, Copa Libertadores with the people they're signing.
That's what I was gonna mention, guys. Those type of hirings, those kind of signings are all pointing into having a good Libertadores. I mean, if you're making those kind of signings, it's not just to, okay, I'm gonna try to win our second straight title in the Paraguayan League. No, no, no. Cerro is gonna play Libertadores. Olympia's not gonna play Libertadores this year. Those are the two big teams in the Paraguayan League, and one of those two need to have a good year in Libertadores, and only Cerro can have it. Olimpia is going to be in the Sudamericana. They're going to be in a totally different competition with other type of teams. But for Cerro, I think is taking it to that next level after having a really long Libertadores last year, where they really pretty much they did all right, but it was too long of a ride for them. It was too long, and they pretty much gave it their all. And this is not the youngest squad. That's why I think they brought in options. especially for the coach. And they gave the coach pretty much everything he wanted because he was champion last year. It is kind of weird to see all these big signings and uh, leave a really high budget for the new president that's going to come in at the end of this month. But Cerro needs to have a good team, and they really need to try to compete in the Libertadores. And the only way you can do that is hire really good players, hire quality, and hire players that have already done it outside of the country. And those are the kind of signings that they did. Yeah, there are a couple that they're bets. We'll see how they do as the season starts. We'll see if they even have a spot in this team because I put it all together and I see in certain spots 4, 5 even options. So I don't know how Jorge Baba, the head coach of this team, is going to handle and trying to make everybody play. But they got options. They probably have the better options in the whole league, I would even say right now. Looking at the squads, Cerro is built, guys.
Yeah, yes, they are. They are built, and I think that that's kind of what their plan is. I think as opposed to Olimpia, who obviously, they're still trying to figure it out. Fede, just, some of the deals that I'm seeing, you think to yourself, are they really going to do enough to actually contend for the title? Because, like, all right, they're going to play Sudamericana, but I don't even think that's going to be enough for them to go far, especially given how talented the field is over there in the Sudamericana.
So many questions around this Olympia team, right? With a new coach that nobody pretty much knows. Yeah, he needs to make a name for himself in the Paraguayan football. Vitamina Sanchez, I think we'll see or have 5 new coaches for the start of this first division season. And I was looking at those names, and it's just him, the new name, because the other ones have already been there. Pablo Vitamina Sanchez, the new manager for Olympia, will have to have his first take in the Paraguayan football, and we'll see how he does against other coaches that have the experience, like Chiqui Arce in Libertad. Even Baba, now he took the weight off his shoulder. First opportunity, he was already champion with Cerro. Vitamina Sanchez doesn't have that, and he's gonna have that pressure on his shoulders. What else do we have? We got Sergio Orteman in San Lorenzo. We have in Rubio Ñu Gustavo Mourinho, who's making a comeback after a couple of seasons being away from first division. We have in Dos de Mayo Eduardo Ledesma, the former assistant who took over, and Felipe Jimenez, who went to Nacional from Dos de Mayo, a coach that's taken a bigger job, I would say, in Nacional. We'll see if they can fit in right there, right? But for Olimpia, I mean, there's so many doubts from the defense because it's a totally new defense. They're bringing in a new midfield, especially with Juan Alfaro, which apparently is going to be the big name in that midfield. And we'll see if they really start taking out these captains that have been there these last couple of years, like Derlis Gonzalez, like Richard Ortiz. Apparently, they're losing spot. So it's going to be new leaders. It's going to be a new team. And we're just going to have to see it on the go, guys. I mean, for me, it's the first 2, 3 games. And if Olympia doesn't get it together quickly, Ralph, it could be kind of the same year they had in 2025. They got to get it going quickly.
Yeah, this Olympia situation is very interesting because, of course, they got the new coach and they don't particularly have a lot of money because they haven't qualified for Libertadores. They're building the stadium. But what they've done is they seem to have backed him because I mean he's brought in a lot of players that I would assume are players he knows about. For example, like Chala, the Ecuadorian, because he was there. They've brought back older players like Alejandro Silva, Raúl Cáceres, Mateo Gamarra, the central defenders back, Richard Sanchez. So they brought back lots of players in. Um, I don't know. I mean, are they going to be the difference they're hoping for? Because they've tried this before, right? They've brought players back to Olympia a few years into their career, a bit like Cerro did with, say, Cecilio and Iturbe, but it didn't have the same effect in Olympia. I mean, we saw some of them come and go. We've also seen them pretty much like move out a lot of their defense, right? I mean, Capasso has now definitely gone. Cantero has gone to Russia. Cantero has gone off to play in Russia, and then Abel Paredes went. So they got rid of like a lot of the defenders that they weren't happy with last year. Is I don't know. It's like you said, it's a huge pressure situation. I think their second game, I can't remember the opener, but their second game they have to go to Dos de Mayo and play away, and that's the kind of match where
Guarani. Yeah,
Oh,
Guarani.
they're opening with Guarani. Okay, well,
Yep.
so they got a really tough start then because if they open with Guarani and then they have to go up to Dos de Mayo, that's a difficult task, I think. So we're really going to see in those first two games how they're doing. The team that stands out for me, other than of course the big teams, really is Rubio New. That's Rubio New's done some really interesting business because Gustavo Mourinho is a very good coach. We know that. And they've brought back like a lot of players who were very good, what, 5 to 10 years ago, because Willie Mendieta's gone there with Rodrigo Rojas. They got Roddy Ferreira. And then they brought in like a couple of the younger players that we haven't really seen make a full impact. So Octavio Alfonso, who was so good in the U20s, he's joined from Guarani, and then Victor Cabañas, who was at Cerro, the young defender, but he's never really played much. But now he's getting a chance. So I don't know. Maybe they put something together there, Rubio knew, that could surprise us and put the pressure on, say, another team in terms of the relegation battle, because of course, the way this is set up, the league, it's always the pressure is on the two promoted teams with the Promedio system. But if Rubio New can string together some good results under Mourinho to start, then I think we might see some pressure on other teams. But yeah, I mean, when you look at this, just looking at the whole Apertura, it's really your kind of eyes are drawing towards Cerro and Libertad, as it often has for many years, right?
I'm about to say, Fede, is there any other team that you're keeping an eye on out this year?
I'm actually worried about this Libertad guys. I mean, I thought they were gonna bring in more players, at least a couple more. I mean, just Pachi Carrizo, who it really isn't that consistent, right, with his playing time. I mean, sometimes you can rely on him, sometimes not. Sometimes he's a star, sometimes he's not even on the pitch. I mean, I don't know what kind of player they're gonna get there in Libertad, even though he's not gonna play with that pressure of playing in a big team or a popular team like Cerro Porteño is going to be a totally different situation for him. In Libertad, he might be kind of the leader in that midfield. We saw a couple of players that stood out in the Clausura, even though they did not fight for the title, like Hugo Fernandez, who had the opportunity to re-sign for the team. So they're really trying to build, I think, a young squad. And with Chiqui Arce behind the whole project, he's definitely going to look into more and more into the young guys. I think Libertad is now thinking more about selling than accumulating titles, maybe even, or going all out with their budget, definitely, because we see that coming from other teams, right? So I don't know. We'll see where they get the goals from now, where they get the experience with no Roque, with no Tacuara there. But it is going to be very interesting these first couple of weeks to see the new teams, like Ralph said. I mean, San Lorenzo is another brand new team with Sergio Orteman. Rubio New, they had their quality really in Intermedia. They played really well in second division, but they didn't keep their coach. They brought in someone similar in the style with Gustavo Mourinho, but they really brought in a lot of new players. So I want to see if some of those players that stood out in second division can now take that level or that same kind of game to first division, like Gustavo Mansur, who was probably for me the best midfielder that I saw last year in second division. I want to see if he can maintain his spot in that Rubio New, but that's just to throw some of the many situations we're going to be following, Roberto. There are a lot of big teams that last year, I don't know if it was because they didn't have their home ground or whatever, but they didn't have a good season. Sportivo Luqueño, they went under the radar the whole year, and they're going to get their home back eventually this year. And when they play at home, they can't lose because the fans, they don't let them lose. So some of these teams are going to get their stadiums back, and it's going to be that kind of year also. We've been seeing teams that have been traveling a lot. Hopefully that starts to end because they're going to get their stadiums eventually ready also for the big games.
Absolutely, absolutely. It'll be a fun season, and I guess what makes it all fun is seeing how well our predictions or how badly our predictions are as well. So we need our predictions. Fede, who do you got winning this the 2026 Apertura?
Wow, this is so hard right now, right? Especially because we are still a week away from the official competition. We've only seen a couple of friendlies from the teams. I'm already opening up the umbrella because things I might be really wrong
Yeah,
about
but
this,
they're
my predictions,
friendlies.
but
You never you
I'm
can
gonna go with my heart on this one. I'm gonna go with my heart on this one more than anything because that's all we got right now. But I'm gonna go with one of the big names, obviously. And I'm gonna go with Guarani, actually, guys, because I want to see Guarani break through. They were so close to making it happen again against Cerro Porteño, and they just didn't have enough against them. I want to see them make the run, and I love that they kept their coach. They kept most of the players. They're staying with the project. I think that's the right way to do it, right? So I want to see them get that title, get that prize that just slipped from them in the Clausura. I'm gonna be rooting for them. They're the team that I want to see win it in the Apertura, and they're my team for this Apertura to be champions. As for the surprise, I'm gonna go with San Lorenzo. I think Sergio Orteman coming back to first division. This is a coach that last time he was in first division, he was managing Olimpia guys, and then he kind of got away from the scene because he got an opportunity to manage a big team, but he really had really bad results. He kind of got away from football, went back to the roots, went back to San Lorenzo in second division. Now he brought it back to first division. I kind of like what I'm seeing from the players that they got together, and they might be one of the hardest teams to beat during this Apertura. But we'll see. That's my prediction. I want to hear you guys.
Ralph?
So, I mean, usually I was thinking straight off the bat Libertad with Chiqui Arce. But then the thing about Chiqui is sometimes he takes his time to get everything, get his style right. So maybe he's not ready for the Apertura. They might end up in the Clausura for the Apertura. It's difficult because yeah, I don't see Olimpia challenging. I think Cerro could be distracted, but I don't know if Guarani can really go the distance. I think I'm gonna go with Cerro. I'm gonna go with Cerro again to go back to back because I just feel like everybody else will be trying to get ready and they've built that squad depth which we talked about. So I think I'm gonna go Cerro back to back. And then in terms of the surprise team, well, I kind of mentioned it, but I think Rubio New are they're gonna do some good or pull off some good results if that team, that group of players that I mentioned are players that, if they're motivated, are very, very good. But if they're not motivated, it could be a bit of like, yeah, they're players that are too big to drop, and then it could become a bit complicated for Morinigo. But let's see. I'll put them in as my surprise review on you for
Yeah, I
the.
think I'm gonna agree on both ends with you, Ralph. That I think Cerro Porteño, I think the transfers they're doing and the transfers that they still are gonna probably get might be enough for them to push them over the line. Even though they are going to prioritize Libertadores and other sort of competitions, I still think they are the best team out there in terms of what they have and obviously the players that they kept. And obviously, we'll see what happens with Jorge Bava and how he is able to handle this team. I think Guarani will obviously pressure them. I agree, Fede. I think they'll be their strongest contender. I think that will be a common theme, I would say, in this entire Apertura. And I agree. I think Rio New might do. I would love San Lorenzo to do something. I think, obviously as the local team, but I think Rio New, from some of the players that they have, I think they have the right to sort of make things difficult for a lot of these teams. And I agree. I don't see much from Olimpia this year. I think Libertad, I think they'll still be competitive, but I don't know if they will have enough to really push for the league title. But ultimately, I think it'll be a fun opportunity. I think, I don't think we're gonna see a team blow away out of everyone. And it'd be nice for Cerro Porteño too, because they don't typically win. Well, firstly, they don't typically win league titles, but definitely Aperturas. It's been a while. We always see seeing Libertad and Olimpia take charge, but it'll be fun. I can't wait. It's gonna be a really fun Apertura, and obviously a lot to still go on for the next week before the start of the season. And we'll obviously talk about that as we always do on Guarani Vision as we close out another great episode. For myself, Roberto Rojas, Fede Perez, and Ralph Hannah, thank you so much for listening in. See you soon.